sir. How are you all? Good. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We've got two sets of minutes in your packet. One from a special call meeting in July and a second from your regular meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to either set of minutes? If not, we take a motion to approve them as they're presented.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Todd makes the motion, Mark White does the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. They are approved. Next is your financial report. Financials will only reflect 1 month into the current fiscal year. Any questions about the financials? Tommy, Mary Daly, anybody want to make any particular comments? You can. I didn't see any grave observations that I needed to focus on. If there are no questions or comments, is there a motion to approve the financials?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Craig made a
Second.
motion, need a second, Mark White second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Next is your water loss report. You've got a general one in your email packet, and Tommy, you provided a little bit more detail in tonight's agenda. And if you want to address any of that with the board, you can. Again, you're 1 month into the fiscal year on tabulating water loss, but it is a lower number than what we have seen from some months in the past. So Tommy, if you want to make any comments about your supplemental sheets that you've provided.
Well, it's the first month of this year in that first report, but this is the one we have to give the comptroller's AWWA report, the one I added.
You file it once a year,
We
correct?
do it once a year, it's for the total year. And, I was telling the engineer there, I said, you got about this thick of paperwork, it goes into 2 pages here. You have to go through all your data and meet all these requirements. And you go through this list and check mark what you've done, what requirements you made. And it gets a point system. And I think the score is still 80%. We made the score this year. So.
What does it look like? I missed it.
There's 2 pages, they were in what was at your tabletop,
It should have been right by the
right
one
behind
for the
the
year.
water loss.
Right behind water line. Here you go, you can have one.
Find this one?
It was
Yeah,
behind that.
that's where it
Mine
was in
next-
my packet. Should have been 2 pages.
Yeah.
Blue header at the top and boxes in yellow.
And this, the comptroller gets this every year.
I think so.
Sorry about that.
So this is the year end?
For the whole year.
Okay. What was our average? 27.5? Am I looking at that right?
I think so, as you adjust all variables away, then you come up with 27.5%.
Is that where we were same time last year?
I think we had a higher number last year, and Years before that, we had carried a higher number.
We keep trying to keep it down, but
Well, I
these
know,
meters will really help keep it down. We'll figure out when they.
Well,
get
and the
in.
more you can capture, water loss that's not going into households for various reasons, flushing, line leaks, whatever it is, then the better this data
If
becomes.
y'all want to sometime, I mean, I've got a book in there, you can go through everything that how we do it. You take all your flushing records, and I use my leak, cause we can look at tank levels and about tell how much we lost. I always use everything I can get to account for water loss.
no, I was just thinking that was very, very good compared to
Yeah.
times past, and I just wanted to point that out more than anything. Appreciate. you
Questions
going that
about
way.
the water loss report, either the worksheet that Tommy has been giving us each month, or the annual one for last year. Neither of these require you to take a vote, they're for your information. Next, we move to engineering report, and Evan, you've got some documents for us.
Yeah, y'all should have our letter.
You might pull out your documents that pertain to mid-10 and a bid report.
Which can't read very good, but
I didn't catch it, Dan, I apologize.
it's all in this letter, it's summarized. I'll try to explain this in layman's terms. The bids come in, we had one bidder, and that's kind of what was expected. It goes with this company, the census company that we're dealing with, I mean, they got their contractor's license and all that went through.
This is bid for what?
CDBG.
Okay.
So, CDBG water laws.
Okay.
It's the zone meter.
This puts in the zone meters that we had talked about.
Well, I mean, we had that going, we had the building going, we had tank going, I just
So
wondered.
roughly a $500,000 grant, CDBG grant.
We had to rebid it, so this is the rebid. It come in at $527.71.75, that is your base bid. There's 3 alternates we added, just in case they went over what was in the budget, and those are summarized. So now it comes down to what, and the mayor may know, I didn't have time to look this up, is it a county grant? The county is the one that does since it's CDBG.
Yes.
Instead of the water.
It comes to the name of the county.
That's what I
yes.
thought, that's what I thought, so it comes to Trifle County,
Yes.
not the water board, so that's why my letter says the county would be liable instead of the water and sewer utility department, so. So with that being said, if we take contingencies and move it up into the construction item, you'd have $499,961 for construction in this grant. And you can see you're about $20,810 over if you was to award it off the base bid. If you award it with the base bid plus deduct alternate number 1, you'll be at $503,343, which would make the county liable for $3,382 more dollars. Or you can award it with bid deduct alternate 1 and 2, and the county would not be liable for any more money, and you would actually give back $10,000 some dollars there, $13,000 back. So
Well, whereas this reads that the county, these funds have been earmarked for water and sewer, and any excess or matching monies have always been made up from water and sewer funds, not county general funds.
So it's coming out from y'all's budget.
It's coming from us.
What was the deduct on alternate 1?
All right, deduct, all the alternates are the same. What it is we put in the base bid for y'all to get 5 years of hosting fees at no cost, but the grant's paying for the hosting.
So that 82 grand is for in the line items, the annual hosting fee is
For 5 years,
so it's.
correct.
Okay.
So all we're doing is taking that out
18
to
grand a
get it
year
back
or
down.
something.
But
All right, explain to me if we don't have hosting fees, how does this thing work?
We pay them yearly.
You
annually.
already do it.
We
because
already
it's-
do it anyway.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to pay them.
It's gonna go
It's
up
a-
to,
It's a matter of how we pay them.
I think it's about 67,000 a year now, but it.
Are they any cheaper if we agree to them up front in this contract
I don't think so.
versus paying those
No, it's not.
fees as we
It's
go?
just, do you want the state to pay, or do you wanna give money, do you wanna pay, alright, here's the best way to look at it, do you wanna pay $3,300 more, $3,382 right now, and only deduct year 5 off of it? Or do you wanna give back 13,000? So do you wanna pay 3 or give 13 back?
So the grant's for 500K.
Yeah.
How much match was there on the grant?
It's a percentage.
12%, 11, 12%.
Yeah.
What we had to
But 499's in there for construction, 499, 961 like the letter says, so. It all depends on if y'all wanna pay a little bit more, or do you wanna give 13,000 back, that's really, cause I don't figure y'all wanna pay the 20, so, I wouldn't. My suggestion would be either go with number 2 or number 3 is your option, so.
Well, number two, I mean, you're giving back 17 that you're gonna have to, pay 3, or you're gonna have to pay it anyway out of another fund, so that makes no sense.
We were already gonna be obligated for the matching dollars anyway in order to accept the
Correct, you're just gonna be giving 30,
So,
30,
those 11 or 12% matching dollars were already gonna be on the table.
Correct. You're just giving more of a match, is what you're doing, to get more construction done.
Board
And
members,
that's how they do it, that's how ECD works now, they're trying to get you to either give them money back or spend a little bit more,
does this, let me figure out how to phrase this. If we give money back, are the chances that future grants might be reduced
No.
because we couldn't spend the allocation this year?
no.
So we're not penalized if we
Correct.
give a little back.
Right, they count on you giving back, really. They just put it in the pot for the next go round, there's no deducts for it.
Okay. So there's no penalty if you go with option 3 and give monies back. There's really
You won't
nothing,
have as much of a
there's not a
matching.
great deal to gain if you go with option 2 and pay a small amount additional.
You have more matching funds, all right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll pay $1,300 to get 10 grand worth of grant money to get that
Yeah.
extra year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, okay.
But still, that's pretty, to me, worth doing.
Oh, absolutely, I agree,
Yeah.
I agree
Yeah, I
100%,
agree.
yeah.
Need any form of motion?
We will, yes, and in your motion, identify which bid option that you wanna prefer so that we'll have it in the record.
Yeah, I need to make sure you make your motion to say a base bid with deduct alternate 1 or, base bid with deduct alternate number 1 and 2, however you wanna do it. That does need to be the motion though, it goes on record.
I'd like to make a motion that we choose base bid deduct alternate number 1, 503,343. And let us be liable for the $3,382.
Have a motion and a second, is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
And we'll begin a pre-construction schedule soon.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Keep up there.
Next, we move to Tommy's manager report. And let me go back, from the minutes, and we had a Mr. Robert Allen present at the last meeting from Short Hollow. Did you have an opportunity to follow up with him and what did that follow-up produce?
Well, me and one of my employees went out and looked at his meter and met him, and, he had about 2.5 gallons a minute running through the meter at the time. And when I asked him, did he have everything off his home right now? And he said, yeah, except his pump was running. I said, well, if your pump's running, you got a leak somewhere, it's supposed to be off. So we went up to the pump and looked at it, it was on, and I'm not so sure, it wasn't wired wrong, but, he has another little tank, pressure tank at the top of the hill near his cabin house there, or house. And that tank was empty. There was no water in that tank, and I told him, I said, I believe we just isolated your leak down between that pump and your home here somewhere. So he's never followed back up far as wanting to know about laying a water line. I give him my card, email. He was gonna ask for all the information about laying a line, and his neighbors doing that, but we've not heard nothing back.
And you told me that, Bill Scruggs, highway superintendent, had made the comment that he knew exactly where the lines were run.
Yeah.
He was present when they were being put in. So if there needed to be follow-up in terms of pinpointing closely where that line was, he would provide some input. I don't know whether he took advantage of that or not.
He did share with me that he was working with Servline, and I think Servline had a contractor that, come out and did leak detection that he talked to, and they were gonna install, if this was the one he was gonna use, was gonna install about 4 valves in that long line for him to troubleshoot with and do some work for him. Whether he proceeded with that, I can't tell you. It's not nothing I know.
So from what Tommy's explaining, he had a long service line, close to 7/10 of a mile, and that fed into a bladder tank and a pump system that went a shorter distance to his house. And they believe that the leak may be between that bladder tank, pump, and the house.
He had indicated that the line went down the center of the road. Did we ascertain whether it was on the side of the road or in the center of the road?
No, we don't know. Bill Scruggs said he would be willing to go out there and meet with him and show him where he thought it was, because he
Well,
remembered
I mean,
seeing it.
Was that his private service
That's
line?
his
or-
private line, private. It's not nothing to do
In
with
talking with Bill, did he indicate whether it was in the road or the side of the
No,
road?
I don't know if that conversation ever took place. I just know that they were talking.
I did not have it with him. I just heard that he knew where the line was and would help locate it.
Bill told me, and I told the gentleman if he needed his assistance, he'd be glad to come out and talk to him and show him what he knew. Now, we left it at that. If he called him, I hadn't talked to Bill about it.
Well, I just kinda wanted to put it on the table since we had that one at the last meeting. That brings everybody kinda up to speed.
How long since the meeting did you go meet with him?
It
And water's
was
still
that
running?
very week,
That week, and water's
few
still.
days. It was, his leak detection was showing 2.5 gallon a minute. And, his pump should technically, when your bladder pressurizes, your pump should shut off, but it was still running, and he just replaced that, looked like, and I'm not so sure it was wired correctly. I don't know that, it just didn't look right. Usually there's some kind of pressure switch, but I didn't see it, unless it worked off of that up on the hill. But I showed him, I said, you can turn this valve off here, and when this line pressurized, that pump should go off, and it never did. So it's possible it ain't installed correctly, I don't know. But we helped him best we could to troubleshoot it a little bit, and I've not heard any more from him.
Well, Tommy, thank you, from the standpoint of the board and, for working with him on that question. I'll let you go into the other things on your agenda there.
Well, we just left on here the customer access sewer stuff. Y'all you want to talk more about that? I know it was a topic. We did look at, Evan looked at that line for us, and the 6-inch main can maintain 650 homes on it. That's coming down the highway. That's how many homes could be added to that line. That's about 3 or 4 people per home. That's how much it can carry. We don't have nowhere near that. It can do that. that's what its capacity is.
Right.
And the question, of course, came up with, requiring people who come with a force main versus gravity. And Evan, you had said you were gonna try to check into that.
You thought state law might exempt hookup
Yeah, I
on
mean,
a
as far as
force
I
main.
know, I've never seen any, well, any of the bylaws, you can do whatever you want, you know, you can, that's beyond the fact, but T-Dec, I've never seen them enforce that rule on force mains. I have on gravity, that's what it's there for.
Did we find anything from them, any legalese? Mayor, did you find anything on that?
I haven't found anything.
My understanding it was up, they could, the local level.
Yeah, it's
could
always
decide
under the
that.
local level authority,
However y'all wanna deal with it. However you determine.
Well, I know how I'd like to deal with it, but I'm not sure everybody else will. But, I'll throw it out as form of motion if we're ready, if you want to discuss it more first.
It's fine, go ahead.
Make a motion that we do not require customers to hook on to a forced main. We'll give them the option if they want to, but not force them to. And however we need to word that to make it flow, that they have the option to hook on if they want to, but that we do not require them to.
For a second.
Could you give us the, are we allowed to discuss still here, Mark?
Let's get a second and then
Second first.
discuss, and then you can decide if you're gonna vote up or down.
I'll second.
Okay, have a second.
Could you
Mr.
give,
James.
just for an amateur at this business, the pros or cons or what the reasoning is there, Dwight, for
What
making that
the
motion?
reason is a lot of times we're running these pressure lines to a specific entity. Say the one that's in question, Allen 25, was initially put in to service, the land steel building. So all of those houses that are on that pressure, particularly the ones on the other side of the road, you're telling them they have to hook into something that's gonna require a more than normal system to hook into it. And that's my justification for it. Same thing with the line that's going all the way out to the prison. You could make the argument that all those properties, all those homes that are on that line can hook into it. If they want to, I'm fine with it. But I just don't see requiring them to when it's more than a normal system would be put in to go to a
If I
gravity.
understand it right, it would require, to connect to a forced main, it would require the homeowner or the residential to have a pump system to force their waste into that forced main.
And it has to be pressurized and maintain pressure.
Mhm.
Most sewer systems are developed and engineered where possible so that you take advantage of gravity flow.
Purely gravity.
Purely gravity. No additional,
So this
mechanical.
motion would not dictate that they're required to, but the option would remain if they chose to.
That's my intention. I think that's fair to the customer base, it's fair to us as well, gives us direction on which way to go. I'll have a further motion if this passes, but as far as to what to do with these fees that have been imposed and paid, but we'll discuss that next.
Any other discussion? We have a motion before you that would, it does not require customers to connect to a forced main sewer system.
And if that terminology is force main, correct, does it need to be pressure, force
I
main
think
is
forced
correct?
main is
Okay.
the right terminology.
And Tom, you'll develop some language to go in the policies in regards to that, I guess.
Whatever y'all decide.
Okay.
Then he may be bringing this up, y'all have the other rules that say you can see limits, you pay sewer, so. How you want?
Is there situations where there's force mains, where we have, that's all there is, and where those rules overlap?
Well, you got some, like, there's a mixture in town, there's a few pump systems in town pumping into the gravity. We've got up to Blankenship, and one house up is all on pump systems back this way to town. So you got homes and businesses, and the school system ties into that and pumps into that.
They have the option to do it. Like I say, I was gonna address the other issue in another motion.
So in those situations, the alternative is a septic system, I guess. There is no alternative
If
except the
they-
force
yeah.
main.
If they
They're
meet
not
the
obligated to hook up to it, but they can if they want to.
If they have the area for a septic to work, that's fine, I'm sure
Sure.
that works.
Okay.
I guess in a condensed area where there's real homes real close, you don't have that option sometimes.
Understand your motion before you. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It does pass.
We need to clear up the language where we're talking about the sewer that's available in the city, because there is sewer available in the county. And there again, I think if we just simply change the language from city to Trousdale County, then that would encompass those areas and take care of the ones that had a gravity system that's outside the city limits. And we do have some of those. So I'd like to make a motion that we change that language to reflect not just the city, but our service district or the county, however we need to phrase that so that it's clear as mud.
You have a motion, is there a second?
Clear as
One more time, what's this one now?
Trying to eliminate where the terminology says city,
Okay,
and where it's our service district, our sewer service district, or the county-wide. So that would incorporate these instances that we have gravity systems outside. Currently, it only addresses people paying sewer and water or on city. I'm trying to make it.
The old city limits.
Is this about the force main? This is just about hooking up to
this
sewer.
is just
period,
about looking at
right?
the sewer.
This
Okay.
is both, actually. It could be both. It could be applied to both. But right now, it's like if someone has sewer, gravity sewer, we can require them to, if we
That's
give
what
them
we
water,
were
to
chatting
hook
about,
on the
is
sewer.
the
But we
complaint
can't
about-
do that if they're outside the old city limits.
Because the language says city
City.
versus
City.
service area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying not change what necessarily we're doing, other than making it system-wide.
Clarify the policy.
Is there a second to Dwight's motion?
I'll second
Take either one of them, Mary Dale. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on what Mr. Jewell's talking about, it'd be under our current ordinances, it's former town of Hartsville ordinances, and it's chapter 18, section 202, subsection 4. And I'm just gonna go ahead and read it just so everybody's clarification. It says, "The owner of all houses, buildings, or properties used for human occupancy, employment, recreation, or other purposes situated within the town of Hartsville and abutting any street, alley, or right-of-way in which there is located a public sanitary or combined sewer of the town, is hereby required at his own expense to install suitable toilet facilities therein and to connect such facilities directly with the proper public sewer in accordance with the provisions of this chapter within 90 days of official notice to do so." I have a question. This is passed by a county, or at that time, a town legislative body. This is not such body. Can we alter this language? Or does this need to be done at a county commission, or by creating the water utility board, has the county effectively seceded that, but never changed the ordinances to reflect that?
Well, I think it needs to start with this board and its policy and its intent. If we need to carry it to a resolution of the county commission, I certainly, if legal tells us that's what we need to do, we'll do that.
So you're just asking, instead of saying within town of Hartsville, you're saying within Hartsville Trousdale County Water Sewer Utility District.
District.
And that'd just be a recommendation to the county commission at this point with the provision, go ahead and let's speak to the county attorney and see has
Which
Everything that's
direction?
happened since this was in place, when it was still the town of Hartsville, with the water department going out to a separate utility, and then coming back with an ordinance that was passed earlier this year, is this section still applicable, or is it not, or? Cause I have a question about if this board creates policies and procedures that go against this ordinance, which one controls?
Do we have a policy, a written policy in regards to this with some kind of language at all at this point on it? Yeah.
Just that ordinance. is what
Just
we
that
do.
ordinance is what
But
we've
that-
gone by, yes.
That's a county ordinance, not an official
Actually,
Well,
that was a
utility
city
policy
ordinance.
or
It
city
was
ordinance.
it started a city ordinance, and when we became metropolitan government, all ordinances in existence folded in and became one.
But the city ordinance is only applied to urban services district.
And the language is, nobody ever went back and redid all the codes to make them
That's
now
right.
for a metropolitan government, so that's one of the things that we're having to go back and do.
Okay.
And make sure that we have the most current changes to the ordinances, cause they were never put in the code, or not all put in the code either, were never changed, so.
Just want us to move toward that. We need to get a legal opinion.
I have no problem, if we make it at this stage a recommendation, realizing that we don't have the authority right now under my interpretation as it is, if it changes, that's fine. So I would go along with that, just as long as it's under the standing, we're just we're recommending changing the language town of Hartsville to Hartsville Travis County Water and Sewer Utility District.
Per the lawyer's recommendation on how that goes.
Of how to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
I like that.
I'll amend
Are
my
we all
motion
on
to
the-
say that.
Are we all on the same page?
We are now. I'm with
If we are, discussion over, we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Does pass.
One more thing along this line. I'd like to make a motion that we refund or apply credit to anyone's account that has paid the sewer required fees on the pressure mains.
We have evidence that, sorry.
The ones that we've done in the last 6 months or 3 months, the ones that have paid for this and didn't come in here and gripe about it, all of them, we've said now we're not gonna do it, we shouldn't be doing it. I want them to have their money back. I don't know how to phrase it, but that's what I'm trying to do. If you come up with a better way to phrase it, or ask me what I'm trying to do, I'm not thinking real straight, I'm sorry. Want to refund their money if they've been required to do this, and we've just said we're not gonna require them to do it, and shouldn't require them to do it. So, let's give them their money back. Don't know whether we needed that in the form of a motion, but I'm making it in the form of a motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Don't know how much it is. Have no idea.
it. Yeah, we can get a list,
Sir?
we can get a list of the people that.
I think it would be only a dozen people. It should be. Certainly, we're saying we're not gonna charge them now. They're gonna say, why did you charge me then?
I'll second that, and then we can second it and then move on further to discussion if
Okay,
it's.
discussion now.
I would be concerned that might be so my example a minute ago, you have a place with you have land with no perk test. Your only option is a forced main. And someone could come in and say, I was forced to hook up to this forced main, when in reality they weren't forced, there was just simply no other option. You know what I mean? Is that situation gonna arise?
That's their option. I'm talking about the ones that we started building for sewer that are still on septic tanks.
Was
And
this,
the people like Mr. Swaffer that we're requiring to tie on to a force main that would not now.
was that the case? That was a forced main out there that we're asking him to tie into? I thought it was gravity. I thought we were talking
There's
about
both available there,
Oh,
but
can't.
he would have to have a pump to do either one.
But mainly, I know that there are people that have been billed that are in the city limits for sewer that are on private systems because of us finding this. Am I correct in that? When did we do that? 2, 3 months ago? 4 months ago?
January, February, we can get all that.
Trash, I'm not sure.
So
if it's in the.
It just seems if we're gonna say they don't have to, we need to give them their money back for the ones that paid it.
It's a separate.
That's all I'm saying.
Legal. It just passes through.
We started billing several people that are on force mains that are not hooking up to it. We haven't forced them to hook up to it, but they've been paying for sewer.
Okay.
I'm
so-
talking about just the forced mains. I'm not talking about everybody that's on gravity with sewer system or whatever. I'm talking about the people that, when we identified them that weren't paying sewer, and all they have available is the forced main, is the ones I'm talking about.
I'm with you on it.
So this is more about the monthly sewer
Yeah.
fee,
Yes.
not tap fees and
Well,
construction and whatever else.
I'm
could
talking
be
about the
on
monthly
top of that.
fees that we've assessed them, just give them
So
credit for it.
okay.
What about any homeowner that in the past did connect and did install a pump system?
If they're on, I'm talking about the ones that are not on it, the ones that are not on our system, that we identified, that had it available through a force main, that we started billing them. I'm not, the people that are on it, of course they're gonna pay for it, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones that are not on it, that are on a private sewer system, septic system, that we started billing them for sewer fees, because we said that force main in front of their house is availability, or that force main across the highway 100 feet away is availability. We had a list, we got the list of the ones that were at it, it was about 12, 14, 15 people.
It was less than that, probably. About 10 or 12.
It's just you've had some people that went ahead and paid it. Now they're not gonna need to, because it's a force main.
Did those
Not all of
people,
them were pressure people, though, I don't think. Not
Well,
all.
I'm just talking about the ones that are on the force main.
Yeah.
I said that.
did those people who we identified and they began to pay, did they simply pay the monthly sewer fee, or did they buy a tap?
No, they didn't.
We have
They
so
just-
It's
many
just
things.
a minimum bill on there, whatever
They
their
began to
water.
pay the minimum sewer bill.
Yes, yeah. Or they're matching whatever their water is, their sewer is.
That's the
Right.
ones I'm talking about.
And you can, if y'all decide that can be credited back or however,
What will be easier in the office?
credit.
Credited.
I would say just give them a credit to the bill, equal to what they pay.
I like credit.
What other kind of gotchas are there? I agree with you, Dwight. It's ridiculous to
understand.
do that, but
Just don't wanna open the wrong door.
yeah, exactly. You know, I'm hesitant just to vote aye on this right now without really thinking through all the possible. Where can that come back and bite us?
Well, I mean, we've said that we're not gonna bill them anymore. We just passed this, that if they're on a force main, we're not requiring them to hook onto it. And that if they're, then they shouldn't be charged for it. Goes
This
to that.
would give them some accumulated credit for 3 or 4 months of payments that they had been making since we identified this.
So-
We do this.
I want to think February or March, but I can't
Has it been
remember
done in
for
the
sure.
past? Is there any people beyond the ones that we just identified
No, 'cause
last month or the other
We
time?
haven't
No,
been
we
able
just-
to identify them before.
I think what started this, when I first came here, we did an audit on all the water customers to make sure all the minimums were being paid, because some customers had multiple minimums and they wasn't all being paid, so we went and did the audit. And we added back what was supposed to be done, and it come up one day that this person was in the city and they wouldn't get charged sewer, so we started looking at that, looked at all those and see who was in the city. And the ordinance says, the city ordinance says they pay sewer if they have sewer access, so. Or or in the city, it doesn't actually say access, it just says in the city.
Could we tie the motion to put some kind of date to it? You know, if this has occurred within the last 6 months, and you can prove, you can come in and say 6 months ago I started receiving this bill, I'm on a force main, I want credit for the
Well, I mean,
I don't
you
know if
know,
that protects us or if that's,
it's
Once they
very
check
easy,
the records, they will find out what the start date
Exactly.
was.
It's very easy to identify who these are, and it's
Yeah.
not a lot of people. It's just I don't, if, you know, if we're saying we're not gonna require them, then how can we justify them being billed?
sure, no, I agree with you
And
100%.
we need to, those few people, credit them what they paid in good faith. That was what I was trying to accomplish.
Tommy, what other kind of crazy situations are there out there in our system
I
where
just-
somebody's
We
got
have-
a gravity and a force main, they've got pumps and hookups, and what other kind of things are
I
out
can't
there that
remember
might
exactly how
catch
it's
us?
worded, but if it says if you're in the city limits, you will pay.
So there's no language
It
in
didn't
that
say
about force
access
main
that I
versus
know of in
gravity.
that thing. I'm just saying you might have a little work to do to get all this right. I just make sure it's right. I ain't saying do or don't do, I'm just saying.
Well, I think the ordinance, the city ordinance said where they're on the street, whatever, that has access. I mean, they're not requiring you to hook on to it,
But you
because they have the option whether to hook on
Yeah,
the water.
you've
or
got
not.
90 days to hook on,
Well,
according
it
to
said-
that ordinance, don't you?
It says, I'll read it again. It says the owner of all houses, buildings, or properties used for human occupancy, employment, recreation, or other purposes situated within the town of Hartselle and abutting any street, alley, or right-of-way in which there is located a public sanitary or combined sewer of the town is hereby required at his own expense to install suitable toilet facilities therein and to connect such facilities directly with the proper public sewer in accordance with the provisions of this chapter within 90 days of official notice to do so. So on that one is if the sewer went by there and it met these requirements, and if you look at the definition of the word abutting, it's next to or anything like that, then they would be sent a letter requiring them to, this is written, this code's 1975, but it's actually from 1955, would require them to install a toilet in the house and hook it directly to the sewer after receiving a letter from the water department, and they'd have 90 days to do so.
We provided y'all with a document from the town of Hartsville where a city council voted whether you're hooked up or not and you're in the city limits, you will pay the bill. We didn't say nothing about accessing that wording. That's what I'm trying to say. There's other documents out here
Yeah.
that we've been living on forever. I mean, we've been billing people based on these documents here. I'm just saying you may have something to clean up before you get to the point where you need to be,
The
I'm not
question
saying
is
that.
access, and I thought we decided that we're saying a pressure force main is not access. We're not gonna require those people to hook up.
Well, the
So we
key,
shouldn't be requiring them to pay. That was written, that says where there's access. Access means that there's a gravity sewer line, you've got to hook on it, you gotta pay the bill whether you're on it or not. But we just took the pressure lines out of that equation. That doesn't alter that in any way.
well, the key will be whether this board has that authority to make that kind of a change, or does, since this was an ordinance, does it have to go before the commission to complete the change?
For us to define what a force main or what gravity or what our system is, I think is our decision.
Yes.
And we've made that decision. Did we not? Yes. Okay? What I'm talking about is while we were operating under the mindset of a force main is access, we build these people that we have said now that we're not gonna bill anymore, to give them credit for what they paid when they didn't need to, okay, or not gonna need to into the future. Now, the issue of the language of city versus district versus county has to do with everything. It's not just this issue. It's not just this issue. But I'm not talking about people giving people money back that have access that are not utilizing it, that are on private systems, that are paying sewer bills. I'm talking about the people that we, in the last 6 months, have said, you've got this line in front of you, you gotta start paying this. We started billing them, and they're paying it because it's a forced main. And now we're saying they don't have to do that. But how can we say you don't have to do it, and we're not gonna give you your money back? I'm sorry, I got a problem with that. Now you figure out what I'm saying is wrong. I'm listening.
So those 12-ish cases, there's absolutely only a force main available. No gravity, there's no conflict of what, what's the language in the ordinance? Abutment to the gravity line. There's no gravity line on the other side of their property. You know, are we safe that we're 100% the only thing they've got is force main in these cases?
Well, you do have the dual in front of Mr. The young man.
Okay.
Mr. Walker. But he would have to have a pump one way or the other.
Okay.
He wouldn't be able to.
His house sits below grade.
It sits below
Road
grade.
grade.
We've had other people who chose, they wanted it, they've run long lines, that big house on the hill, they've run a long line down and tied into, they've actually tied into the gravity, I believe. But it's still going in the sewer system, but it is pumped. And we have those few people in the system got pumps. And they've had them for how long, a few years, they've not had one time.
But that's different from a pump system. That's just
Well,
that's different from a
they
pump
work-
system to a force
That's
main.
just
That's
getting
just
their
that's
effluent
just
up to the line.
yeah,
That's
just
not
a
a forced
normal
line.
grinder pump thing or whatever to get up to the gravity line.
I think most of the affected area and what you're talking about is gonna be on Highway 25 going west.
Okay.
Right now.
Which you do have some people utilizing it that way, but. and so
That's their choice to utilize.
They've been on it or however, business, or there's a house or two maybe on there. You know, there's at least one house I know of on it.
If they're on it, I'm not talking about the people that are on it, I'm talking about the people that are not.
Not on it, but got the bill in the last.
Got the
month.
bill and have paid it, and they shouldn't be forced to be on it, and we need to give them money back. Whether we write them a check or we give them credit on their account, I don't care, as long as they get their money back, whichever is easier. And I would think a credit would be easier, and I can't imagine any of them thinking that wouldn't be okay. Just trying to be fair, just trying to be fair to people.
I'm not debating that at all, Dwight. I think it is fair, but
And I
you gotta,
understand,
you know,
the
it's
what
just-
ifs are what bites you in the butt, believe me, I know, I deal with it all the time. So unless, you know, if you're already on it, you're gonna pay it, you know, but the people that are not on it, that we have started adding it to their bill are the ones I'm talking about. I'm not talking about somebody that's been doing it 2 years ago, I'm not talking about somebody that's in the city, has it available, and they're not on it, they still get to pay it. I get that. But what I'm saying, there's some in the county that are on it, that ordinance right now, the way it's written, doesn't cover. We'll
If
get
we-
that straightened out.
If we accepted this motion, and there's some guy out there on 25 that's hooked up to the force main, and he comes in here and he says, 3 years ago, before Tommy was around, that old superintendent told me I had to hook up to this force main. I've got a septic tank out there, and I didn't want to. And how are we going to respond to that?
Let them show you a permit.
That statement.
Let them show you the state permit. For
You would
septic-
have to have
for
a state
septic
permit
tank.
for a
Yeah.
septic,
I mean, 'cause
an
if you
approved
got-
septic bill.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
And
approved.
he pulls in with a septic
From that
permit.
date and time, but how are you gonna get these few people who've been affected their money back?
Well, and that's what I'm thinking through, you know, the manner of how.
Do you wanna say in the last 6 months, or since we
That's
started
what I'm
billing
thinking.
this, or?
I think you just put a deadline on there. We know when we started billing them, so, and we're trying to recap the people that we just affected, so I think that's our intent and everybody's intent. So if we know when we started sending the bills out, we know exactly who they are, we know exactly who to credit. Let's credit the money and let's roll.
I mean, that shouldn't be that big a deal to figure it out, should, how long is it gonna take you to figure out these people, how much we gotta give them back? A day, a half a day, an hour, 15 minutes?
That's not the concern though, it's the can of worms that opens once
I think if you put the deadline, I mean.
potential can of worms.
Well,
We got the minutes in here. I mean, we got the minutes in here showing what we're trying to do. We're trying to recap. We're trying to make people whole that we have just affected in the last couple of months. And that's the intent. And I think Dwight,
if
you're
there's a
right.
way
I think
to,
both of
if
you
there's
guys
a way
are
to
right
phrase
thinking through it.
to limit it
but-
to that, that's great.
Yeah.
But
We know exactly when it started. We need to put that date in there, you know.
And I mean, if you wanna wait till the next minute and next meeting and have the list and have these people and how much it is and their names and that's who we're voting on, I'm cool with that. I just want us to give these people their money back. We shouldn't have done this. Bottom line, and I'm trying to correct it. Just my opinion. I voted for it.
I think everybody's on the same basis. I think we all are. Just-
The motion is before you.
What is it again?
I do have a question. The letter that was sent out to these people who popped up in that audit, was that sent in January or February? Do we know?
It wasn't a letter, so we just added it to the bill.
Okay. Well, was that done
We
in
sent,
January?
only letter was sent to Mr. Swan,
Okay,
the 30-day hook.
the audit was done and we started charging them. Did we start charging them in January or February?
I'll have to look and see, I can't tell you.
Okay, well, I was just thinking if you could say,
From the
trying to
first
think how to word it, the people that were, I guess, started being charged after the audit, whether the audit was done in January or February, who then since started paying the sewer tap fees that are on where the sewer forced main would be, you're gonna credit them.
That would limit you to a certain population.
Because there was some that were identified in that audit that were genuine, were in the city, needed to be
Right.
charged
And
for
that's why I
work.
said on that forced main that we just voted on a little while ago, saying if they're on the forced main and they started paying.
That's
And
my,
I'm also assuming that the only ones who are affected by that are the ones that were on the forced main going west of town towards Lambstead.
yeah.
Because as far as I know, we weren't making
Everybody else
anybody,
was out of the county, was outside the city limits, and we didn't identify them.
and we weren't doing anybody on the forced main going east towards PowerCon that I know of. I think the only ones I heard so far is heading west on 25.
Don't think there were any.
I don't recall there
Because
being any.
we considered them outside the city limits. We cannot in our system identify all the people that are in the county that are paying for water that should be paying sewer, because according to that ordinance, they don't have to. Only the people in the city have to. That's one reason that we need to get that corrected.
I'm just trying to make sure it's understood that, because as you said, the city limits does that weird little thing where it heads out east and takes in Lambsteel, but that's the only area that we're really talking about where they've gone that force main and started getting billed
But
for.
those houses, would they all be in the city? There's
Anything-
strip zoning out to Lamtech.
No. I mean, it goes all the way to Lamtech, off College Road, that corner is your city limits. Doesn't go beyond that. Right now, this, housing project that's, the other side of Sulphur College that's proposed, will be in the county, it will not be in the city limits. And that's why we need to change this ordinance, because we have Bridle Path that's on sewer, that's not in the city limits. You're gonna have that development that's gonna be in the county, but on our sewer system. That's why we've gotta get the city out of it and put it to system or put it to county, so that we treat everybody the same.
Are there any rules out there for developers and things, if they were doing a development out near the force main, that they're obligated to hook up to the force main?
Well, if they,
Obligated to. I mean, if they parcel it out to quarter acre lots with no perks, and then they're,
If they go so small, they can't get a septic permit anyway, so they gotta hook to the
they
sewer.
have to
gotta-
hook up.
And it's under the subdivision regulations, they gotta install it at their own expense and then turn it over to the water department.
Gotcha,
I
okay,
mean, they can cut it into 5-acre tracts, and they don't have to do anything.
sure, okay.
But anything below that, we are gonna have.
So our statement would still hold, developer, we can take the statement of if you're, solely with a force main, you're not obligated to hook up, that doesn't matter with developers or any of that kind of
I think we're just saying, if they got options, they get to choose.
Yeah.
Right. If they don't have any options, they don't have any options. You gotta get on, you gotta pay. I think.
Additional discussion?
I'd be okay with a cleaned up, clear motion with some kind of language tying this back to any changes to January 1st, 2020 to people with no sole access to a force main, something, keep that in there.
Can you read to us, Mary Dale?
I don't know what the mayor,
You think
I think the mayor. put
He
it
caught it pretty good,
Yeah, he
I
did,
think,
he did.
and
Well,
I don't know the formalities of it, Mr. Beeler.
we've chased this
We need
thing
to-
all
we
over
need
the
to
place.
pick it up or start
We need to
over
make
and just-
sure we're voting on what we intend to vote on.
Okay, we're gonna refund or apply credit to all accounts that have paid on, that have been charged that are on the pressure main since January first, is what I
That were identified in the
heard.
audit.
In the audit, okay.
I guess you make, like you said, starting January first and end date of August 25th, 2020. So if they've been started paying in between those two time periods.
I think most of them started paying in March.
To credit and not.
I think that's
Choice.
correct, because that's when it first came to the board, I think, when they brought it up at the March meeting, because I think it's the first
That's when I
time we
started
did
getting
that
the phone calls.
coronavirus.
Some say want to check, but some say credit, you know.
I got most phone calls about April, May.
We clear?
Only thing I wanna change is the credit, not or, so they don't have an option.
Apply credit to
Just apply,
accounts.
yeah.
Credit, if that's easier. I'm
The
good.
person made the motion and the person made the second, acceptable to that edit,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Stephen?
Yes, I didn't make a motion, I was just
I
making a
thought you made the
suggestion.
second.
You made the second.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
But yeah, I'm fine with that, and I would just say, I think it's gonna have to be a credit, because comptroller's office don't like you doing refunds.
Credit's good.
Alright, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say no.
Thank you very much. These people will appreciate it.
Okay, Tommy, we're back to you. Fire hydrants.
No more of it. Oh, we got about, about 13 replaced of the original 20 that we had. One modified, which was rebuilt to a modern standard. It was a M&H, and there's, the only ones we like is the ones that have the valves we're installing. We did finish one today, and I added that to this list, updated it. The one on Hayes Street, or Andrew Street. We only like the Church Street, which we're waiting on the gas company to move the line. Their gas line's right on top of the water main. They're in the process of moving it right now. And when they should be done tomorrow, we'll finish it by the end of the week. And, there's two other hydrants we can modify to modern. You don't have to take it out, you just change the guts out, and it modernizes it to the standards of today. We got two of them, we can do that way. The one on New Halltown, we found one in the flow testing on Suffolk College. It can be modified. It just needed I needed a special tool for it to get it off to grease it. And it's all it really needs to be greased, but it can be modified as well to modern style that the tools of today work on. The Board of Education, we're waiting to get a valve put in there. We got one hydrant that we can't shut the line down to get it. And he's coming Friday, if everything works out as planned up here. We're gonna try to do 3 valves. We're going to install one at Church Street to get the hospital shut off. To get that one at the apartments. And that's really the only ones that we need to change out left of all the ones we had on the list. And the other ones. And when we find them, we got the one on Broadway at the 4-way stop. It just needs some new gaskets and seats to go in. The nozzle to be replaced, and we're waiting on those parts to come in. But we found that in the flow testing. Some of them we found in flow testing, and they're at the bottom of the page that those are.
And Tommy, I would say from the standpoint of the water board and also other hat that I wear, standpoint of the fire department, we want to thank you and your staff for what you've done on checking these hydrants and getting some flow records established. That would go a long way for any future ISO scoring records. You need that kind of documentation that's dated and compounded like it is there.
We only like 42 more flow tests out of the nearly 200. So we about got them done.
That's great.
And we about got all of them color coded except for the ones we did today, and we'll finish, that'll be about 50 left color coded.
I would also mention, earlier, a couple of weeks ago, Tommy had a in-service training with his staff and fire department with the representative from the hydrant company, American Darling, and they went through and a detailed explanation of how they work, how they're connected, how they break away, how the valves work. So I wanted to thank him for conducting that kind of a in-service that we participated in from fire. I think you're getting the attention on hydrants that you asked for as a board. Another question before you, and Tommy has provided you with one piece of information, and you had asked for what were the costs of going through and replacing these oldest hydrants in the system. And you've got a few hydrants that are going back into the 60s in age, and you've got an assortment of brands, 6 or 7 different brands of hydrants, some of which there aren't tools available to modify and work on. So in an attempt to upgrade and standardize, you had asked for a total package price. And Tommy's provided you that with the worksheet. So Tommy, if you want to talk some more about that.
If I could comment on that, Tom, what I would really, this is kind of a, 50 units, or however many units, just a number thrown out there.
It's a rough estimate, it ain't exact. I still ain't had time to go, I need to go measure all the hydrants to determine the heights.
What I would love to see is for your professional opinion to say, I really think we need to do these 10 or these 15, or if it is all of them, whatever what do we really need to do here? Do we need to do all of them, or can we do some of them? What's the worst ones out there? That kind of, just kind of a general professional.
Another way to approach
opinion on
this
that.
might be, instead of taking it on as a single project, you could decide, I'm going to accomplish this project over 2 or 3 years.
Sure. Start by identifying
and
the
then take
worst,
it in
and then start
halves or thirds or fourths.
Sure.
And it wouldn't be such a blow to one budget. You're actually spreading it over several budgets.
Well, I think that was our intent in the conversations we've had about it before, is to work toward this, work through this. Going back to the initially, if you don't mind, you said we had 20 that we'd identified initially, and 13 of those have been taken care of? Okay. And then you had said there was one that was modified. Is that in that 20, or was that another one?
It's rebuilt new, I counted it's done. Green means it's done, but it was
But I'm saying,
modified.
is that 14 of the 20?
Yes, that's 14.
Okay. And you said you identified, so that leaves us 6. So you said you had identified some more. Are we adding 1 or 2 or 3 to that 6? Are we up to 8, 7, or are we still at 6?
You had 4 original that still ain't done, of the 20, that we got waiting on the valves to be inserted. Those I found in the flow testing, and we've ordered the stuff to fix them.
Okay. So you're saying that there's 4 added to the 6, or
There's 2 added to this.
2? So we've got 8 at this point that need to be replaced or fixed that we know of. I know we're waiting on the gas line, I know,
There's
you know.
6. No, it ain't 6.
I think it's the ones in yellow.
Yellow's the
on
ones
that
that
sheet
got,
there.
the ones in yellow is all we like right now that we know of.
On this first sheet,
Yes, this sheet right here, sir.
okay. So that's the 6 that we yet to do,
Yes, sir.
okay.
And we'll have, by the Friday, we should be able to get 3 of those, and then the rest are the I'm just waiting on parts to do the modification
Okay,
to the modern standard time.
alright.
And he's showing by date that they should be finished this week if everything goes
The
smooth.
valve people are scheduled to be here, and hopefully we'll do all 3 valves, and where we can get them changed out.
The way I understand it, you're at standstill. Until
I
you
guess
get either parts
we-
and people move.
The
stuff
gas
around.
company had cut here quicker than I thought they would, and they thought it was gonna be done, but they had to push, they thought it was gonna be done last week, but they couldn't get the people up here that had to do the welding, so that's tomorrow, so they had to push their schedule off. And I had to push my guy off to do the tap. the
Well,
site.
I will mirror what Mark said. I'm more than greatly pleased that we've made that much progress in this period of time. I will apologize for us having to come down so hard to get it done, but I'm certainly glad that we did. So, you know, I think we don't need to proceed with hiring somebody to do these things. It's obvious we can and are doing them ourselves. And these other 2 sheets, are these in yellow the ones you're identifying that need to be?
Those are mine that there's about 20 so more there that are oddball brands that I can take time on my own and change those out. That's the ones I said I would do.
So this is your short list.
That's
of the
my
ones
short
that
list, the
really
ones
need-
I would be glad to
Okay.
take my time.
And that's
doing them so much
22,
time.
if we did 10 of them.
If you
in the
did the
next year.
50 project, I would do the other 24 myself, and there'd be about 75 new ones, you know.
So this is an estimate for somebody else to come in and do it?
That's buying the material, us buying the material, and then that last price at the bottom is Mr. Kemp's price to come in and put those in.
So 87,500 of that price would be labor installed.
On those valves that you can't do.
But we got,
Well, if you want to do a max, he said he could do 2 a day.
these 72 here, are they just the oldest ones?
Yeah, they're all the oldest ones now, guys.
Cause I 85 and on back.
I think some of them go back as far as
Some of those
54.
older brands that nobody knows about, they're old now. They
Yeah.
know Eddyville's. I just learned some of this last week or 2.
How feasible would it be though for your department to do these and leave him out?
We can do them over time. We ain't
Well,
gonna
and
have
I
no
understand
time.
that, but
And that's why I brought up, it might be prudent to look at this as a 2, 3, 4 year work project that we build into our ongoing operations.
I mean, do you think you could do 2 a month, 3 a month?
1 a week.
10 a year.
I mean, without, and I'm talking about
Them-
on an average. I mean, there may be some
I
weeks
don't
you
wanna
do 2.
14 in 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, if you did 1 a week, I mean, you've knocked this out
But
in a
we
year.
can work
that's,
toward
that's
them.
my point.
Yeah, we can do that.
Of course,
It's
I'd
not
like to
nothing-
see all 72 of these done, cause
Yeah.
that gone.
I mean, is 1 a week on average too much to expect or too much to ask for?
No, I think we could work on it. I think that's doable. We've done in 6 weeks, done.
Without pulling you away from your other.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can manage on a small scale so many a month. You know, we can do so many a month.
Well,
I'd rather keep it in-house.
If you
Stephen,
could
were
do
you saying something like,
if you could do 3 a month over 2 years, that would get you all 72, because you do
That's
36 a year.
Think you could do 3 a month on average? Now, I know that some months you're not gonna be able to, you're gonna have things blow up
Won't
and you're
be.
not able to.
Probably won't do them in the cold months, but we'll
Right.
make up for it in the
Right.
warmer months.
I mean, I think that would be a good target
Yeah,
and, just see how it goes.
and I've made the comment before that one of the issues that utilities have old and aging infrastructure.
Sure.
Fire hydrants are a part of that infrastructure, and you can easily see here that we've got some that date back to 1954. They're still functioning, but they got a lot of age on them.
Is there any grants out there for that kind of thing?
Some of them work really well.
Homeland Security or fire
Unfortunately.
department things or something like that?
No, that's kinda considered maintenance.
I've never
issue.
seen one.
Another thing you may wanna address is buying them in bulk.
Yeah, I would like to buy bulk hydrants up, cause we'll save money doing that.
Can you find out how much?
Yeah, I can get you a price and bring it back to you.
I mean,
Well,
when
he's
you
got 50 listed here at $87,750, $1,755 a piece.
They can sell, I've got room for them to sit on the yard down here at the sewer plant. They
Oh,
clean
we
it up.
find your place to put them.
We got plenty of room for it.
So that could be year one, you know, that gives us, what's half of 72?
They'd much rather bring me a truckload.
36.
36, and then a few
You're gonna save
extras
money
to,
on a truck lot.
for replacement.
Is 50 a truckload?
Oh, no, I don't think you.
I don't know.
I don't think you get that many
I
on a
don't think
truckload.
you
Is
can.
30 a truckload, 50 a
Do
truckload?
they stack them or do they lay them flat on a trailer?
They lay
There's
on
someone
flat.
like that.
They're heavy.
They lay them flat and they put wood
They can
slats
stack
between
them, when
each
they
one.
bring us a pallet of them, there's like 4 to 5 to a run, so they can stack them about 4 or 5 high. But they might get maybe 5 of those on a truck.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
4, you know, 5 high, so.
So you need to find out what the price break is gonna be to buy them in volume. You
Even
haven't done
if
it.
it's 100 or something.
I mean, you haven't done that.
No, not yet.
But I mean, you haven't, in
I
times
just-
past, asked them,
I did it from where I was from, we bought 30 at one time, so it was, I think we saved several $1,000s.
So this price
Well,
of
we buy 'em now, one at a
1755
time.
might be, we
I
might
buy
get a
'em
better
at my-
deal.
I buy them at my spending limit at a time. I can only buy $10,000 at a time.
yeah.
So I can
So,
buy about 4 or 5 hydrants at a time myself. I
Could
can
you,
do that.
could you bring us a budget proposal next month, say we're gonna do start a project, 36 per year? What that'll look like to order them in bulk and kinda, here we
And I'll
go.
probably order a lot of the accessories with it too.
All right, have we got to bid this?
Yes.
but if it's not gonna be a substantial savings
No, it will
to
be.
buy them that way,
It will
I
be.
mean,
It will be.
It will be.
okay. Well, then we need to look at it for sure.
Your gate valves and your hydrants will be, if you'll buy them in bulk, you'll
You'll save money.
And that'll be the biggest expense of it.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Bring us some figures.
All right.
More discussion, comments on the hydrant update? Tommy, we'll move on to whatever, let's see,
Back to our rock break.
rock breaker.
Well,
I've been there before.
Yeah, we've
You
seen
have
that
been.
before.
Well,
I think we told you to wait till you needed it, didn't we?
Well, every time I try to send the one I rented back, I end up using it, so,
What's your rental fees in the last quarter?
about 4,000 a month for the whole machine.
You
But we
got
was
it.
using it on a project too over here, but I kept it around because I have used it.
Does it come mounted on a backhoe?
It's on a backhoe right now, but I'll buy the hammer that goes on our backhoe. And it stays with us, we'll have a hammer. We went through maybe 2 to 3 bits, it being, you know, they depend on how hard a rock is. But what we're gonna use it for will be just these maintenance issues, but when I took the mayor up there on that hydrant up here that we replaced, and I asked him, you see how that's hydrant ain't perfectly level? Well, they know why, ain't no rock, couldn't get the rock out from under it. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, we've used it on some of these hydrant change outs. We put in a brand new hydrant, which was not on the list too, gentlemen, but you actually got 15 hydrants. We found one we didn't know about. The bottom, the top was gone, and the mowers, the state mowers had whacked it off, and it caused 2 breaks in the main over the weekend. It caused water hammer to happen, shattered one line at T-Cat, and
Flooded Mr. Falco's basement.
it's headed right toward his home.
It flooded the basement. It sucked water out.
But, I'm just saying, in that instance there, T-Cat's line,
How much do you think you spent on a rock hammer since we talked
Oh,
about this
that's
last?
4,000 a month for probably 6
Oh,
months.
at least 6 months.
Well, at 4,000 a month, it would take 7.5 months to cover the cost of the higher price.
Will our backhoe handle the bigger one?
We bought it with the ability to hook something to it like that. It's got the hookups already on
So
it.
there's no problem with the larger one, the 1,500 pounds?
No, sir, that's the biggest you can get for that unit.
Okay,
And it's a pretty good hammer. That's a pretty powerful hammer there.
well,
I give you the option of the 1,000 pound just if you wanted something to look at. But those are state bid prices, so we'll have
What
to.
is the hammer capacity of the one you're renting?
It's probably about 1,000 pounds on that machine. It might be a 1,500. I have to look. It's a comparable backhoe. Like you can rent a backhoe cheaper than you can the little mini Lexus. So we rented a backhoe with the unit on it.
do we have the funds to do this?
Yes, sir. It's depreciable. You don't come out of your budget totally.
Still gotta pay for it.
Yes, sir. You have the cash on hand. Yeah.
How many bits you broke on it?
It's just a dull one.
Oh, it's no.
But we use that quite a bit on some pretty hard rock. The T-Cat line down here, it was sitting on the rock.
How many free bits they gonna give us?
2.
Too.
2? Can you talk them into giving us like a dozen?
You ain't gonna talk Ponce Cannon and give you nothing.
Except for
Well, they give you the 2. No shot. You did good on that. Get a motion?
We will, and to identify which one.
I'm going with big boy.
Yeah, buddy.
That's only one that have rent.
I'm gonna be.
You making that, Craig?
Yes, sir. I'm looking for the sheets, so I can tell you which one. But,
It's the Caterpillar H955 hammer.
I make a motion, we purchase the Caterpillar H95S hammer.
That's 5S, okay.
H95S hammer. Biggest one that'll fit our backhoe, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
How hard is it to change out your backhoe bucket to the hammer? Is it,
Pins, isn't it?
is it
Well,
really difficult?
we have those quick connect buckets right now, but you probably might have to do something different with this. It'll have a bracket that'll hook onto.
Okay, but it's not where you're gonna mount this on the backhoe and not have the backhoe bucket on
We can always change it out.
it. Okay, but
It's
I mean,
either or
It's
while
either-
you're.
No, it can't be 2 things on it at one time.
I understand that, but
But
I'm
you can
saying,
change it here.
Yes.
how much trouble is it to change it? Is it
I've never
a
changed.
2-man job, a 3-man job? Is it 2-man
I
job
don't
for 2
think-
hours?
One man out on the ground and the backhoe operator doing the work.
Okay, so it's not that big a deal to
I
change
wouldn't
that.
assume it.
About an hour.
Pop the lines on it and off you go.
They're quick connects. And we bought that.
Just want to be
backhoe
sure
with
that
everything.
that wasn't gonna be an issue and it falls on somebody's toes and we have workers' comp.
Additional discussion?
Only thing is you just have a little more wear on it, on the backup part.
Yeah.
It wears out a little faster, but I mean.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's approved. Tommy, anything else? That's all that was on your list.
That's all I had. All that got done now, I appreciate all my men's hard work. They really worked hard.
Absolutely.
They absolutely have.
They really have,
I'll quit trying to fuss that.
and they always do.
Board members, any other comments that need to be brought up tonight?
And the ladies.
I will say that I did have a lot of calls from the public on people on that sewer line, and on their behalf, I'd say thank you for looking at that and let's get that straight.
Yeah, it needed to be done.
And Mayor, I guess this part would fall to you. Try to get us some clarification regarding policies that we make versus things that appear as city or county ordinances, and who has the jurisdiction and what needs to go before what body for final approval.
You know, I'm supposed to
Can you
meet
give
with,
us some update?
I'm supposed to meet with
next
Mr.
month?
Beller on Thursday, so I'll put that down there as a list of topics to speak to him about.
Okay, thank you.
And that's an issue on other things other than what,
We're not the only department that might face some questions like that.
well, I'm saying there's other issues within our department because of that wording. It needs to be clarified.
Well, and in its beginning, it was a city-run
Sure.
utility. And some of that stuff was never cleaned up. Anything else? Motion adjourned?
Yes, sir.
So done.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I'm not
Belated
ready for
birthday.
the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Next time it's your turn.